Come and spend 24 hours in the hospital with me as I'm admitted for cellulitis and an abscess in my arm. So the first thing that happened was I got a cannula inserted, and then here is me showing you the state of my arm, and they also drew on my arm. I then had to have an apple juice for my blood sugars, and then my arm started getting even more red, and then they came and hung some antibiotics. I then had my first lot of meds through my J-tube, and then I did my subcut meds. I then did my hair. Here's me just spraying the front, and then I popped it up into a ponytail and then just twizzled the hair round until it went into a bun. Personally, I used to use Kirby grips, but now I use a hair tie. I find it so much nicer on your hair. My arm was getting more red, so they drew new lines and encouraged me to keep it in the sling. I watched some Teen Mum, and then I just chilled for a little bit. I then had to get a cannula placed, and they popped it in my elbow, and then it was time for me to get some fluids, but the machine kept on beeping. It was doing my head in. I then went to x-ray and got an ultrasound. This was to check how much fluid was in the abscess, and there was a lot. I then got my fluids reconnected, and I had a J2O and some chipsticks. It was then time for more meds, so I did my J-tube ones. I then did my subcut medications. I have 3 subcut medications 3 times a day, so here's me just popping that into my subcut line. And then I got an arrow drawn on me as I am going to theatre. It was just getting so red, and you can clearly see the pus sitting under my skin in this clip. I felt so sick, so I popped something on my iPad, and then I tried to get some sleep as I'm getting surgery tomorrow. The first thing that happened this morning was we found out that my cannula had tissued, so it had blown. I then did my J-tube meds, and then I did my hair, and then went on to do my dressing for my NG tube. Here I'm just using a little Tegaderm. These are absolutely perfect, and they're the perfect size. Once I'd done that, I then laid down for a bit as I got really dizzy, and you can see how big the abscess is here. Here is all the markings on my arm and how it's looking this morning. I then went ahead and got my skincare out. I started off with some micellar water on some cotton rounds and just cleansed my face. I then used my Glow Recipe toner and serum, and then lastly moved on to my Bubble Slam Dunk moisturiser. I have been so nervous about going to theatre again. I just don't want another scar on my body, but at this point I have no choice. My cannula, as I said in the beginning of the video, is also blown, so they need to try and find a vein before they put me to sleep too. Here I'm just popping on a little bit of lip balm, and then I'm setting up some fluids as they said I could run these as I was getting dehydrated. I just got everything out of the packaging, and then here is me pouring some sterile water into my bottle. I'm then getting my multivitamin, which just dissolves in the water, and then I'm popping that in. I am then screwing on the top and then running the Given set through so there is no air in the Given set. I then had a little ice cream, watched some TV and set up my fluids. Then it was time for subcut medication, so here is me injecting them. I then had a couple of J-tube meds, so I did those, had a couple of sips of apple juice. I was sick, so I popped something on my iPad, and then I went for a little nap. That nap turned into an overnight sleep, and I woke up in the morning to go straight to theatre, and here is me when I am back, and here is my arm all bandaged up. They did manage to get another cannula in, and they had to take my rings off because of how swollen my arm was. I am just so thankful it's done now.